These potatoes were transplanted, I'm not even sure, a few weeks ago for sure, from our compost bin. I was getting some of the compost out to fill other areas in our garden, and I noticed there was a potato plant. And so since it was so difficult to find potato plants in the store, I thought, well, what if I transplant this into a 5-gallon bucket and then simply, when the plant dies back, see if any of the potatoes are big enough to use to grow more plants, and I can multiply a potato crop that way. Now these are a butter variety. They, I believe, are that like German butterball, German yellow. That's all we buy are yellow German potatoes, but there are a few varieties of them. And so I'm very curious to see how this looks, and I've really kind of been stopping myself from digging down and really checking it out. But as you can see, the plants are completely dead. Now, I don't know if this is a determinate or indeterminate variety, but I'm guessing because it is now April and that they are dead, they are a determinate variety. The big thing is that it could also just be that I moved them into a 5-gallon bucket, but these were growing early in the year for us. They were already there in February growing. So, I mean, potatoes, they can grow in cooler weather than sweet potatoes. They can handle down, the cooler nights of 40 degrees and everything else. And since that's pretty much as cold as it gets here, except for in extreme weather, we don't really have to worry about waiting until the weather warms up to grow potatoes. You can pretty much grow them year round. Whereas sweet potatoes, we do have to wait until the weather gets warm enough and reaches a certain temperature to kind of grow them or harvest them, because they do like heat. We are in what is considered a subtropic zone, so we do have a much longer frost-free season. I think we have like 288 frost-free days a year on average, which is a pretty good amount. So you can see these are really dead. Like, they never flowered or anything like that. And I'm just going to dump this bucket out. The whole reason of putting them in this bucket is that they were going to be easy to harvest. So I'm just going to throw this over. And you can see there's already like 2 very large holes in the bucket. And that's one of the reasons I was cool with using it. And look at that. Oh, baby worms in there. How awesome is that? It's always nice to see healthy soil life. I'll just lift this up. So, at first glance, there doesn't appear to be a lot of anything. Here's where the plant is, so I'm just going to dump this over, kind of dig through it. Yeah, there's a lot of compost that's not broken down, but that's pretty much all I see. One very, very small potato tuber. Look how little it is. This is so cute. That's really tiny. I'll just set the tuber over here in this grassy area. See if there's anything else. There better not be any snakes or anything creepy like that in here. I know some people love snakes, but I'm a little freaked out by them. There are some really small tubers that never fully developed. Look how tiny these are. And they're actually fairly smushy. So this could have actually looks like it could have developed a bunch more, because there are a lot of small tubers in here. Look at that didn't grow. Isn't that pretty cool? I feel like this is the adult version of like a small science experiment from when we were kids. There's another tiny potato. I'm just throwing it to the side. So a lot of this compost isn't even used. I should have really dumped this compost out, not in the grassy area, but right over here in this area that we already laid down a barrier and put mulch on. So now this is on the grass, which is not ideal, but I guess it is what it is. The grass will just grow through it. Oh, here's one fairly decent sized tuber. Still a little small, but this one's actually, you can see where the plant was attached to it right up here. I don't know about the tiny one. I might be able to use that as seed potato. Definitely that second one I can. It really just looks like this didn't grow well in here. There is some, so you can tell where this was in my compost bin. It hadn't broken down all the way. This is probably the part that was, yeah, it's paper. Look, there's an earthworm inside of the newspaper. So I think I'm going to gather this up and put it back in the compost bin to break down more. But look at all the soil. There are a lot of very young earthworms in here. Here's another one. I'm actually kind of confused because there was a very large tuber attached to this plant when I transplanted it, and I don't see that tuber anywhere. It's like we're missing a bunch of tubers. So I actually think that the weather must have rotted some of these potatoes, because there were more large tubers than this upon transplanting. So now I'm just confused. Hi. I'm checking for potatoes because the plant died, but I only found like some really tiny potato tubers. Pretty much nothing. Yeah, it's like there were large tubers when I transplanted it and now they're gone. I just got these. How's this for tiny little potatoes?
At least you got something.
Yeah, that's true. He's still positive. At least you got something. This tuber right here is hard as a rock. Well, I guess you can safely say that this potato experiment was a complete bust, right? It really was. I mean, I got those, so I guess I might be able to grow 2 plants out of them. It's just really strange that the largest tuber that was in there whenever I transplanted it is gone. I don't know if the plant used it up or if something ate it. Like I said, look at that, little tubers. Well, this was a bit of a bust, but what can you do? And look, that plant is super dead. So you can transplant tomatoes. You really do need the right environment and everything else to do so, the right growing season. There are people, and you can look up videos, who do start their tubers indoors, which I'm doing now to some of them, and then they put them in soil and let them grow into small plants and then plant them out. And I'm definitely going to try doing that, but also I want to try just planting them directly in ground. You can plant them whole or you can cut them into pieces, so you have some options. But right now I'm just completely out of growing space. This 5-gallon bucket was right in front of my squash bed, one of my squash beds. So you can definitely tell how there's no space. These squash have taken over everything. And so my next order of business is to create more beds, but I'm kind of in a spot where I just can't put out the money to do so right now. So one thing I might be doing is cutting down a couple of trees in my front yard to make some beds. So that's it. I know some of us were kind of curious what would happen with these potatoes. I know that I was, and nothing happened. It was definitely a bust. I probably should have just left them in the compost bin to see what would happen, but it is what it is, and hopefully the potato tubers inside will do something for us this year. And if not, then we'll just keep trying until we figure it out. So thank you guys for joining us for this very silly short video. And hopefully you all have much better luck with your potato experiments than we did.